book discussion, The Whole Story by John Mackey. John Mackey is the founder and CEO of Whole Foods. He was CEO until they sold the business to Amazon, and he actually remained CEO for a couple of years, and now he's retired. So it's his story. It's an autobiography of a man that I've been looking up to for decades. I want to give a little brief introduction into my relationship with Whole Foods and John Mackey, and then discuss the book. The reason I feel really emotional about this book is because Whole Foods has changed my life in two ways. Whole Foods was the first company that we invested in and really made a lot of money with. So in that way, Whole Foods helped me understand what wealth creation means. It helped me teach what it means to really take my money and other people's money and create wealth by investing. For people that are new to this podcast, the purpose of this podcast is to give people a sense what it feels like to run a hedge fund. So I feel very strong that this episode is hopefully able to explain what it really feels like to run a wealth creation company like a hedge fund, which is a little bit different than running a company like, let's say, Whole Foods or Tesla. It's because you're not in the operational day-to-day business, but you're employing your capital to people who are in the day-to-day business, and you're growing the business. So the question is, of course, which people do you employ your capital with, and how do you decide when you're right and wrong, and those kinds of questions. And Whole Foods helped me crystallize the questions and the answers. And of course, Whole Foods is synonymous with John Mackey. Not to disrespect other people that played a big role in this, as part of the book, which shows people like Walter Robb, the former co-CEO, and lots of other people, all the way down to the founders team, and then up to the corporate ladder that created Whole Foods the way we know it in recent years, and all the way to the sale to Amazon. So it's a great story about entrepreneurship. It's a great story about wealth creation. So for me, this is crucial because, again, I think Whole Foods really was my mentor in terms of becoming a wealth creator as a hedge fund manager. Uh, we started in 2008. We did invest before that. So even before the fund started, we had investments in Whole Foods. But then when the fund was created and capital was invested properly, professionally, since then we've done over 15% annual compound return after fees, which is exactly what we set out to do as a goal. And that's a pretty good return in any which way you measure it. Maybe if you measure it in terms of Bitcoin, it's not as good, but everything else, it's definitely a good return. And I think a lot to that is to be thanked to Whole Foods and John Mackey. I think the other thing that Whole Foods did for me personally and my family is also introduce us to better food. Simple as that. I grew up in Switzerland, which I think food-wise is certainly an upper scale of I'm talking now, of course, just average access to food. I'm not talking about fancy restaurants or luxury places, that kind of thing. I'm just talking about general day-to-day access to food. Switzerland's pretty good already, but I think Whole Foods just has really shown me the value of good nutrition, and also the disvalue of bad nutrition and things like that. So I think that's just as a sort of intro. But now let's talk about the book. And there's three things I want to discuss. It's a great book, highly recommended reading. I think it's I would say it's a sequel to Made in America by Sam Walton. So this is another retail magnate who created a big, great business. It didn't grow as much as Walmart and Amazon, the company that they eventually ended up selling to. But nevertheless, I think Whole Foods is a great example of wealth creation, and probably even better example, because it's in this day and age where, and the motto of the purpose of our fund is to create wealth by investing in fundamentally new engineering by investing in fundamentally new concepts and engineering practices. So that involves technology. It involves scientific discovery and technological instantiation of scientific discovery. So Whole Foods is not like that. Whole Foods really is a grocer, and they were able to create billions and billions and billions of dollars of wealth by just doing something really mundane, which is just selling food, but doing it better, doing it more value centric, doing it more customer centric, doing it more human centric, and create value. And that's what's so beautiful about this story. So that's the one thing first thing I want to talk about wealth creation as a um, as a as a task or as a process of creating better lives and better futures for stakeholders. The second thing I want to discuss is the importance of leadership, and we're tying this towards also our current portfolio that is dominated by Tesla and NVIDIA, and those are two companies that are both led by incredibly charismatic and important and interesting and smart and curious people. And I think that's what it takes. It takes leadership. It takes, it is like watching the grass grow. A company, you can't just walk into a meeting or to kick the tire and decide, okay, this is the reason why I'm going to invest. This particular sentence in the 10K, or this particular comment in one of the investor conference, or this meeting with the CFO convinced me to invest. It's not like that. But then in the end, on the other hand, it is about people, and that's the fine line that I think we investors always have to tread. And the third thing I want to discuss is really interesting, and that is the end of the book where it's playing the infinite game, which reminds me of the beginning of infinity. And actually, this book is almost like a practical application of the beginning of infinity. What I mean with that is that you have the beginning of infinity by David Deutsch, which is a philosophical treatise on the purpose of life, on the functionings of life, on the actual technology behind evolution and life and creativity, and what makes evolution go forward, and what this whole thing is about, and what the role of the human is in this whole thing, and all those kinds of really interesting questions. And I think Mackey gives a practical application of the same concept. He says, look, we are here on this earth to play, and we are playing because we have fun. And when we play and when we have fun, we succeed. And that's what evolution is all about. So evolution is maximizing success, but the success is maximized through fun. And fun is really what it's all about. Now, fun is a word that has many meanings for different people. I would call fun just a satisfactory explanation for what you're doing, and you can find satisfaction by pleasing as many people as you can given your resources. So I'm kind of, if you play a video game, you're pleasing yourself, maybe somebody else. It's still fun and it's fine, but it's not going to survive as an evolutionary discriminator, right? If everybody just plays video games, then we will, as a species die. It's not going to work. So what we need is a different kind of play. And it starts with flirting with a spouse, with a woman or a man. You flirt with them because it's a play. We even call it foreplay, and then what we do is procreate, right? So we need to play in order to create actually human flesh in form of kids. And we need to do the same thing with entrepreneurship. We need to do the same thing even with science, even in technology, at university. No matter where you create, it's always about play. So I like this analogy that Mackey is drawing here without referencing. He's not referencing uh, David Deutsch at all. So it's possible that we might actually introduce this book into our principal stack. We'll see about that, but it's certainly a book that is very close to my heart because it explains a couple of things. It explains what I do, and it explains why I do what I do. This is not even a podcast. It's November 6, 2024. This is Crypto Telco. For the day, the fund is up 16%. The market is up 3%. For the year, we are up 42%. The market is up 24%. We're up from about 18%. These are rough numbers. The market's still open. We just had the election yesterday, a landslide win by Donald Trump, and also Republican win in Congress, which is amazing for the future of this country. We've said it in several podcasts before. We believe that this is an incredibly bullish sign for equities, for the business, for culture, for the well-being of this country, because we are ridding ourselves of this totalitarian nightmare that was encompassing us after COVID. and the leadership of the Biden administration was going towards, in my opinion, a total disaster. Not necessarily because Biden is a bad person or Harris was a bad VP or anything like that. It's just they've given up the reins. The deep state has taken over. Extremism on the woke side has taken over, and that usually ends up in disaster. So I think this election was a referendum against that, and it was clearly and decisively decided that nobody wants this anymore. And that in itself is already a great sign. Now, whether Trump will deliver or not, we'll see. But the signs are great, and we're very hopeful that this new direction of the United States actually will bring us prosperity and also help us create value with our portfolios. So what does that mean for our portfolio? I think most importantly, there's really three important things that Trump needs to do in order to satisfy the desire of the equity market to grow. And just by the way, we had a very, very strong signal today, just following the yield curve. The yield curve steepened a lot, and that's not because we expect inflation or anything like that. That's just an answer to growth. So we're selling long-term bonds, buying equities. And that's because we expect three things to happen. One is a reduction of the deficit of the government. Second, a reduction of the deep state and the waste and the regulatory overreach of the government. And third, also a liberation of a cultural corset that we were all, some of us more, others less, sort of entrenched in because of woke and COVID. And I think that will definitely open up juices, creative juices, and will help this country get to greatness that it deserves. So let's start with the entrepreneurial story of Whole Foods, which is really the first thing I want to talk about as far as the book is concerned. So the entrepreneurial story, what does wealth creation actually mean? Okay, we start in the case of Whole Foods, we start with a small store in a Victorian house in Austin, Texas, and 40-something years later, we end with a 20-something billion acquisition by Amazon, right? So what does that all mean? How do we put this in order, right? And I think the answer to that question is it depends, right? We have to look at the details. Not every company is the same. Dell, Tesla, Amazon, Whole Foods, they're all different types of companies. There are different ways to make money. There are different ways to run companies. Sam Walton created an empire. He was not like John Mackey. So I think that's definitely one lesson here, right? There's not one cookie cutter way to create wealth. But there is a way that pleases us at Orange Capital Partners a little bit more than maybe other ways. And that way is this way of, I call it ideological capitalism. And we have for people who are interested, check our website. We explain in more details what we mean with that. We don't call it ideological capitalism, we call it regenerative growth, which just means that, look, you can grow a business, create wealth, by first and foremost satisfying customers. That's your main job. But it's not just about the customers. It is really about satisfying human beings that are involved in this business across the board. That's what sometimes is called stakeholders. Stakeholder capitalism has gotten a bad rap because of people like Ralph Nader and stuff. Bad rap in the sense that people on the capitalist side think that it's communism, and people on the communist side or the Nader side think that it's just a placeholder for greed and stuff like that. So let's not talk about stakeholder capitalism. Let's talk about ideological capitalism. And all that means is that, look, I have a purpose to fulfill. And I'm really, really religious about that purpose. And that purpose is, for example, decarbonizing the energy infrastructure in the case of Tesla, or bringing healthy food to people in the case of Whole Foods. But the process you do that with matters also, right? The end doesn't justify the means. So you can't have a mission and then just do whatever it takes to fulfill that mission. That's not right. You have to do it in a right way. Now, what is right, what is wrong, that is a philosophical question. I think we are very Kantian here, so we believe in some sort of categorical imperative, something along the lines of that, okay, you want to do something that most people would do in your position. Or maybe you can even use John Rawls in the Whale of Ignorance, right? Most people from different from different parts of life and cultural backgrounds and all of that, they would do similar things. And the more people would do similar things, the better those things are. Which translates really to very human-centric businesses. And that's what Whole Foods is about, and that's also what Tesla is about. That's what Nvidia is about. Now, having said that, one caveat, for example, with that is immediately, just to be clear, for people who think that this is just some touchy-feely hippie stuff, it's not at all. Actually, it's the exact opposite. Because a business like this, and this is very much like how Tesla is run and SpaceX and how Whole Foods was run, is it's a business that is incredibly excellence driven. So it puts people on a higher pedestal. It puts human creativity, human performance, human relationships. All of those things are incredibly highly valued. But it also is a reciprocal deal where, okay, if I give you responsibility and trust, I also expect the best possible work from your side. And just as a side note, the reason John Mackey left Amazon after he was CEO of Whole Foods, even after the acquisition, was because he was pressing for Amazon to bring people back to the office, at least in the Whole Foods, in the Whole Foods side of things, because he was feeling that this remote work situation that was going on in Amazon and everywhere else in the economy is very detrimental to Whole Foods, and it just shows that like he is obviously a very humane, uh, friendly person, but as a business person, he's also very cutthroat. Like you got to come to the office and give your best. You work for this company, you work for the customer, you work for the shareholder, you work for the other employees. Like there was a big unfairness in the Whole Food structure, which is the people in the stores were working in the stores, obviously, and the managers were working remote. And we all know how remote work ended up becoming some sort of almost, yeah, well, I work from my cabin, in Lake Tahoe, and I have a good time, while others are, you know, working their working their butts off and things like that. And that's, of course, that's not okay. So he's in that sense a very excuse me, a very cutthroat person. He doesn't this is not just about hippie, oh, we're all friends and nice people, and none of that stuff. So that's the first thing I want to say. So it's human centric. It's do the right thing, and the right thing is the thing that if you had, let's say, in the multiverse, most people would end up doing that, and that whatever you're doing will succeed. It will survive sort of the scrutiny of evolution, the scrutiny of business competition. And I think Mackey really fundamentally was successful because he put people first, people, employees, and customers. It was always people first, people first. But again, cutthroat business partner, cutthroat, not compromising on things that are very important to his values. Uh, Another way to look at it, what is business? What is really the crux of a wealth creating entrepreneur? And actually, you can analyze this also with Whole Foods. It's the single biggest mistake they made, according to John Mackey, and that is they did not relentlessly lower prices. You see, when you do a business, and this is something that very few investors understand, and actually even very few entrepreneurs. When you do something, you can't just look at the revenue side of things. In other words, you can't just look at products and try to sell those products and make them as best as possible and all that. Yeah, I mean, that's part of the problem. But you have to be as relentless on the cost side, because the only long-term value creation happens when you lower cost and increase value at the same time. Now, there's some leeway here. If you increase value by 10x, maybe the costs don't have to necessarily decrease. Or if you lower costs by 10x, maybe the value doesn't have to go up that much. That was, let's say, Walmart's a big success. But nevertheless, you have to have a relentless focus on both. And it's very clear in this biography that Whole Foods as a company started drifting more and more towards the revenue side. There's a scene in the book where he talks about how they wanted to have a slicer concierge. And I don't know how you guys feel, but when I go to, let's say, in my apartment building, there is a concierge, and that word alone already sounds very alarming to me. And then they have things like, whatever, they offer services that nobody needs. Like, this is always a sign for they want to maximize revenue. They don't care about the cost. And lo and behold, particularly in the housing market, prices are always going up. And the value, if you're happy if you're building, if you live in an apartment building, stays the same. Usually they get worse. So that's, I think, lowering costs. And I want to tie this to a practical advice for investors and to our current portfolio, which is, again, mainly Tesla and Nvidia. Like, those two companies are obviously obsessed with revenue. I mean, products, services all the time, but they're as obsessed with lowering the cost. In the case of Tesla, it's obvious. They're lowering the price of the car. They're lowering the price per mile in the cybercab, lower the cost. SpaceX is lowering the cost of launches. Nvidia, by the way, is also lowering the cost dramatically. That's why they are so powerful. And how are they lowering the cost? Everybody's saying, oh, their GPUs are expensive. Yes, they are. But the price per token, what you actually are buying is not GPUs. You're buying training. You're buying the ability to generate tokens that help you generate AI. And the price per token is coming down. The price per the token per watt is coming down. Or like an entrepreneur should, if you endure a PowerPoint presentation, which you shouldn't, but let's say you're in a coffee shop talking to a potential entrepreneur that you want to invest in. If they don't talk to you about some sort of ratio that they want to maximize or minimize, in other words, if there's no cost constraint, then don't invest. If they talk to you about changing the world and they have, a genius product or blah, 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 or whatever they claim they have, it's all good, but how are you going to lower costs? So this is definitely the first lesson that we took in this book. And it's a really important for anybody who wants to invest, particularly in businesses through equity, whether it's VC, seed, public markets. What is the cost side of the business? This is Innovator's Dilemma 101. This is Wealth Creation 101. The second thing, the importance of leadership. You need personalities like John Mackey, like Steve Jobs, and of course Elon Musk. And if you invest in people like that, make sure you adjust your lifestyle to them. There's a scene in Heat, the movie, where De Niro tells Pacino, he says something along the lines of, if you have to chase a guy like me and adjust your lifestyle to my lifestyle, how can you ever have a wife? The context is something like De Niro is the gangster and Pacino is the cop, and Pacino is supposed to catch him, and he tells him over coffee that he has problems with his wife, and that's what De Niro says to Pacino. So, and that scene always stuck in my head because it's like that with us and Elon Musk. If we invest in a guy like Elon Musk, we better be ready to have a private life, a financial situation, our relationship with our families is such that we can stomach this type of risk taking and this type of volatility. We're going to get very, very rich if we do it, but it's going to be tough. Just make sure. So leadership is key and leadership is crucial. And leadership is also what you have to show as an investor. You have to at least be able to follow the kinds of leadership that you're investing. The third thing I wanted to talk about is the infinite game concept. It reminds us of the beautiful idea of the beginning of infinity. And it talks about creativity, the importance of creativity, the importance of human play, and the relationship between play, creativity, being good at something and succeeding. In the end, evolution maximizes for play and fun and excellence. Whether it's in entrepreneurial context or even in the context of nature, it is always a mix of play, fun, and excellence. This episode, just the last word. I want to tie this all now to actually today. It's the day after the election. Donald Trump has been voted into the 47th presidency of the United States. We've also gotten a full sweep in Congress, and that's why we believe this is Goldilocks for equity markets, because it's good for the economy, it's good for the future of this country, good for the future of our kids, good for the future of our businesses. Regulatory capture will come down, government deficit will come down, and cultural capture will come down, like I said in the beginning. I think
a big part of this has been the involvement of Elon Musk. And a lot of people, including us, were questioning his political involvement. And we were kind of saying the usual thing that everybody says on Wall Street, which is, don't get involved in politics, just run your business. Well, Musk has all proven us wrong. And the reason he's proven us wrong is because he's shown us that in order to go to Mars, you have to fix Earth first. In order to change the energy infrastructure of this planet, you first have to fix your planet and then change it. And that's what he's attempting to do in getting involved in the Trump presidency. Of course, he's not explicitly saying that, and I am pretty sure he's not going to succeed on every front in managing now the US government or anything like that. But he's taken action. He's succeeded helping Trump to become president. Trump has done a lot of good things also totally not related to Musk. And by the way, I don't want this now to become like Trump made Musk president, Musk made Trump president, because clearly Trump's not going to like this type of narrative. And I think Musk is well advised now to go in the background and do what he's supposed to, which is reduce the regulatory capture. However, I just want to say for every investor out there, don't follow the conventional narrative. Even in this extreme case, when one of your portfolio companies gets very political and very explicit, but it comes from a genuine leader, from a person that says the same thing publicly that they would say to their kids, follow them. Don't be scared. You don't need it. It's okay to have fear, but don't be scared and don't pull back just because it's a bit uncomfortable. Wealth creation is tied to uncomfortable decisions. And this was the mother of all comfortable decisions, buying Twitter, getting involved in politics, not just to help himself or his businesses, but to fix this country, because only in order to go to Mars, you have to fix Earth. And that's what he did. So this is just something I wanted to add as a side note. But anyway, to summarize the whole story, John Mackey's book, phenomenal book. It ties into the story of Whole Foods, into investing, and into today's situation that we are in a country which is high deficits, high regulatory capture, total disarray in Washington. But we have a new president, we have a new spirit in this country, and this is what matters the most. Thank you.